Hello everyone, and welcome to East of Mystery. Today, let's venture into Sanxingdui together, armed with a series of questions and seek answers from its artifacts and historical records. Sanxingdui, are they truly sacrificial pits? Why did a great river run through the center of this magnificent walled city? What is its connection to the fantastical Chinese classic, the Shan Hai Jing, or the classic of mountains and seas? Why would the powerful Xia and Shang dynasties cross thousands of miles of treacherous terrain to attack the distant kingdom of Shu? And where are the descendants of Sanxingdui today?
Our story begins in China, a century ago. It was an era torn by internal warlords and widespread suffering, while foreign powers circled like predators. The entire nation was gripped by a profound crisis of self-doubt. An ancient question haunted the minds of all Chinese intellectuals. Do we truly have 5,000 years of history? Did the legendary Xia and Shang dynasties actually exist? In 1928, the discovery of the Yin ruins in Henan province was like a ray of light piercing through the mists of history. Archaeologists unearthed oracle bones and bronze cauldrons, which, when compared with historical texts, definitively proved the existence of the Shang dynasty. This pushed China's verifiable history back by several hundred years, and it was a powerful shot in the arm for the nation's fragile confidence. At almost the exact same time, 1,000 miles away in Guanghan, Sichuan, a farmer named Yan Daocheng was digging an irrigation ditch when he stumbled upon a pit cache filled with jade and stone artifacts. He quietly took some of the treasures home and hid them. Although the Yan family tried to keep it a secret, word eventually got out. Exquisite artifacts began to appear on the antiques market, catching the attention of Western missionaries and scholars in Chengdu. In 1934, David C. Graham, curator of the West China Union University Museum, and his assistant Lin Mingjin formed an archaeological team. They conducted the first scientific excavation near the pit Yan Daocheng had found, confirming it as a massive ancient cultural site, which they named the Guanghan Hanzu site.
However, due to war and turmoil, archaeological work at Sanxingdui was sporadic for the next several decades, until 1986, when an earth-shattering moment arrived. A local brick factory, while digging for clay within the site's boundaries, accidentally uncovered a dozen jade daggers and tablets. Experts from the Sichuan Provincial Archaeological Team rushed to the scene. After careful clearing, they confirmed it was a rectangular pit filled with intentionally smashed and burned bronze objects, gold, jade, and elephant tusks. This was the discovery that would shock the world: sacrificial pit number 1. While the archaeologists were still reeling from this incredible surprise, a second pit was found just over 20 meters away from the first. As one unprecedented artifact after another was unearthed, the whole of China, and indeed the world, was stunned. These creations were radically different from the Central Plains bronze culture, and unlike any other known ancient civilization. They represented an independent and brilliant aesthetic system, radiating an intense air of mystery. A giant bronze divine tree, a bronze mask with protruding pupils, a life-size standing bronze figure, and a golden scepter engraved with cryptic patterns. Each piece was enough to set the imagination of ancient history enthusiasts soaring. First, let's look at this bronze divine tree. It stands 3.96 meters tall. The tree has 3 levels with 9 branches. A divine bird perches on each branch. Fruits hang from the twigs, and a dragon spirals down the main trunk. What does this bring to mind? The world tree from Norse mythology, or the tree of life from Sumerian myths? In the ancient Chinese classic, the Shan Hai Jing, there is a fusang tree in the Great Eastern Sea that connects heaven and earth, and is home to the 10 golden crows, the suns. At the center of the universe stands the Janmu tree, which casts no shadow and serves as a ladder for gods and shamans to travel between the mortal world and the heavens. The very top of the bronze tree is broken, but it's speculated that when complete, it likely held exactly 10 divine birds. And the dragon, in ancient Chinese lore, was a messenger between humans and the gods. This bronze tree is very likely a fusion of the Fusang and Jianmu trees. It is both a model of the cosmos and a ladder to the heavens. Of course, the mysteries don't stop there. If you look closely at this image, do you feel a sense of rotation? This might have been an intentional design by the ancient shoe craftsmen, using twisted lines to create a dizzying sensation, a connection to a dynamic universe. Now look at this bronze statue. It has ox horns and a serpent's tail. Among the 3 sovereigns of ancient China, the cultural ancestor Fuxi had a human body and a serpent's tail, while Emperor Yan, an ancestor of the Chinese people, was said to have had ox horns. This statue seems to merge the features of 2 figures from Central Plains mythology. But let's flip that idea. Is it possible that these 2 mythological figures actually originated or split off from the single effigy? Next, we have this protruding eye bronze mask. It's 131 centimeters wide and 71 centimeters tall. There are holes around the edges, clearly for it to be worn. What kind of being would have such a massive head? Since we've already found prototypes for the giant tree in the Shan Hai Jing, could this mask also be something recorded in that text? We found 2 such beings. One is a serpent named Zhulong, the torch dragon. The book describes a god in the far northwest with a human face and a serpent's body. His eyes are vertical. When he opens them, it is day. When he closes them, it is night. His breath drives the turning of the seasons. The other is a man named Quafu, a giant who raced the sun and died of thirst, his staff transforming into a grove of peach trees. Quafu's clan also once fought against the Yellow Emperor of the Central Plains. If this mask was worn by a giant of the Quafu clan, everything seems to fit. This raises a question. Was the Sanxingdui civilization heavily influenced by the culture of the Central Plains? These legendary divine trees, gods, and even creation myths all correspond to those of the Central Plains. But then, how do we explain the artifacts that were unearthed later? Look at this eye-shaped object, about 60 centimeters long and 25 centimeters wide. This is clearly not a totem worshipped by Central Plains civilizations. And look at this bronze head wearing a gold mask. If we were to draw in the whites of the eyes and the pupils, what do you notice? Ancient Egypt, ancient Sumeria, they both worshipped large eyes. In those civilizations, large eyes symbolized the omniscience of the gods, a window for communicating with the divine. Could it be that this form of worship traveled thousands of miles to the Sichuan Basin? The most direct evidence comes from this golden scepter. In ancient Egypt and Sumeria, the scepter was a symbol of power. In China, however, the seal and the Ding cauldron were symbols of power. This scepter from Sanxingdui is 142 centimeters long. The wooden staff inside has long since decayed, leaving only a thin gold foil sheath. Engraved on the gold are images of a man with vertical hair, fish, birds, and an arrow. So, did this scepter belong to a king or a high priest? Let's look at the scepter finials that were unearthed. There are dragon heads and bird heads. This golden scepter is decorated with birds, fish, and an arrow, motifs full of life. I would guess it was paired with a bird head finial and symbolized royal power. The pattern might tell the origin story of a dynasty. An ancestor wearing a crown founded the nation through fishing and hunting and received the blessing of a divine bird. It's very possible there was another golden scepter symbolizing religious authority, and that one would have been engraved with, at the very least, a dragon. These guesses are not without basis. Let's look at this Jade Zhang tablet from Sanxingdui. It's clearly deeply influenced by Central Plains culture. The zhang was an important ritual object in ancient China, generally used for mountain worship. On this tablet's pattern, at the very bottom, we see 2 mountains, a fishtail and a bird's beak. Above that is a kneeling figure wearing a pointed hat. Further up are carved clouds. Above the clouds are two more mountains, perhaps with coiling dragons on either side and a floating altar in the middle. At the very top of the design are two standing figures wearing flat-topped hats. This is practically a microcosm of the social structure and worldview of the ancient Shu kingdom. Standing higher implies a higher status. The figures at the top with flat-topped hats held the power to communicate with the heavens and the divine dragons. They were likely shamans or priests. The kneeling figure below, with the pointed hat, represents the secular king. His power derives from the mountains, rivers, fish, and birds below, representing his rule over the land and its people. According to the ancient Chinese text, the Chronicles of Huayang, the first three kings of Shu were named Kansong, Boguan, and Yufu. The name Yufu can be broken down into Yu, fish, and Fu, a type of water bird, which corresponds perfectly with the motifs on the golden scepter and the jade tablet. But the most incredible part is this. The first king was named Sanxingdui. Historical texts describe him as having protruding eyes. There are two interpretations. First, his pupils were vertical. Could he have been a reptilian, and does this connect to the Anunnaki of Sumerian legend? The second interpretation is that his eyes bulged outwards, which perfectly matches the protruding-eyed bronze masks, doesn't it? Now let's look at these bronze heads. Some have flat tops, others have coiffed buns. It's very possible that the flat-topped ones were the priests, while the others were warriors or commoners. From this analysis, it's clear that Sanxingdui was both deeply influenced by the culture of the Central Plains and also shows traces of Western civilizations. It's highly likely that in the ancient past, in an age without borders, cultural exchange was far more prevalent than we imagine. So where did the Sanxingdui people come from, and how did they live? According to ancient texts, the clan of the first Shu king, Sanxing, originated from the Min Mountains, located on the border of the Tibetan Plateau and the Sichuan Basin. Coincidentally, Yu the Great, the founder of China's Xia dynasty, also hailed from the Min Mountains. It's quite possible they were relatives. The Sanxing tribe gradually migrated to the present-day location of Sanxingdui and established their kingdom. We no longer know what they called their own country, but the Central Plains cultures always referred to them as the Kingdom of Shu. The Chinese character for Shu has an eye radical at the top and a worm or insect radical at the bottom, which vividly represents their eye worship, while the worm could represent a dragon or a snake. The name Sanxingdui means three-star mounds. Locals say there used to be three large earthen mounds here that pointed to three planets in the sky. Could they have pointed to the same celestial bodies as the Egyptian pyramids? Unfortunately, we can no longer verify this, as the mounds were leveled by surrounding villagers in the 1960s to build houses. The ancient city of Sanxingdui covered about 3.6 square kilometers, possibly making it the largest city in the world at the time. Curiously, the Duck River flows just north of the city, and another river, the Mamu River, ran right through it. We must remember that 3,000 years ago, the climate was warmer than today. The Sichuan Basin was humid and rainy, and with the Tibetan Plateau to the west, floods were common every summer. Having a river pass through the city would have been very dangerous. Could it be that the ancient Shu people had mastered advanced flood control techniques 1,000 years before the Dujiangyan irrigation system was built? On the other hand, a river in the city would have been very convenient for disposing of sewage. The northwest part of the city was the palace district, the northeast was for workshops, the southwest was the ritual area where the artifacts were found, and the southeast was the residential area. This was an exceptionally well-planned city. But a huge contradiction emerges. In the residential and work areas, most of the artifacts unearthed are pottery, jade, and stone tools. There are almost no bronze objects. This indicates that bronze was a very precious resource in Sanxingdui, reserved exclusively for ritual use. So, what did people wear? We can find clues on the statues. The Sanxingdui people likely yearned to fly. Look at the patterns on their clothes. This statue even has wings carved onto its legs. Strangely, among all the unearthed artifacts, there are no objects or depictions related to boats or wheels. Remember, Sichuan at that time was likely filled with rivers and swamps, and transporting bronze would have required carts and boats. The discovery of a large number of Indian Ocean cowrie shells also suggests that there was likely a trade route from Sichuan to India. This route may have been the precursor to the later Southwest Silk Road. How did they maintain this trade route across the Himalayas without wheels or boats? This itself is a massive puzzle. Archaeological work on the foundation of Sanxingdui city wall has revealed it was wider than the foundation of Xi'an city wall. Such a formidable wall suggests the nation was threatened by a powerful enemy. Yet, among the bronze weapons found, the vast majority were ceremonial objects. A nation that spent enormous resources to build what was arguably the world's greatest wall seemed to pay little attention to developing practical weapons. Was their defense reliant on the power of the gods? This leads to another question. Why would they take such precious bronze ritual items, use them once, and then smash them? If the Sanxingdui people were so wealthy, bronze objects should have appeared among the commoners' tools. But in reality, the common people were still using stone and pottery. Furthermore, in mythologies around the world, gods are in the heavens, and offerings are usually burned. Who buries offerings meant for celestial gods in the ground? According to the latest archaeological findings, the bronze items were generally wrapped in silk before being placed in the pits. Considering the mysterious disappearance of the Sanxingdui civilization, I have a bold hypothesis. Perhaps these so-called sacrificial pits were actually hoard pits. These items were normally enshrined in temples. When an enemy launched a surprise attack, the people couldn't carry away these heavy bronze objects. They had no choice but to dig pits and bury them, then flee with lighter loads, hoping to return and unearth them after the enemy retreated. But this time, the enemy was powerful and ruthless. The people of Sanxingdui were never able to return to their homeland, leaving these artifacts buried until our time. There are records of this in the texts of the Central Plains. Legend has it that during the Xia dynasty, the last ruler, Ji, attacked Sichuan and plundered a vast amount of treasures, cattle, and sheep, as well as two beautiful women named Wan and Yan. The Shang dynasty went even further, with two successive kings launching campaigns against Sichuan. According to oracle bone inscriptions, the Shang king repeatedly performed divinations about attacking the Shu kingdom. The period of Sanxingdui's mysterious disappearance aligns perfectly with the period of the Shang dynasty's attacks on Sichuan. If you know some Chinese history, you'll know that the Shu kingdom in Sichuan was an extremely difficult place to reach. China's greatest poet Li Bai once lamented, "The road to Shu is hard, harder than scaling the blue sky." Even 1,000 years after Sanxingdui vanished, the knowledge of the Central Plains about Sichuan was limited to legends. For a Central Plains dynasty to attack Sichuan, they would have had to cross the Yangtze River, primeval forests, and rugged mountains. Even the most powerful modern militaries have struggled in places like Vietnam and Afghanistan.
So why, 3,000 years ago, would the Xia and Shang dynasties dispatch massive armies across 1,000 kilometers of obstacles to attack a kingdom they didn't even share a border with? I suspect it was related to the religion of Shu. We've speculated that Shu was a theocracy where divine power surpassed royal power, so its religion must have been highly developed. Sanxingdui was likely the Jerusalem of ancient China. When the religion of Shu spread to the Central Plains, it might have been a dimensional-level blow to the primitive shamanism and ancestor worship of the Central Plains. The founder of the Xia dynasty was a relative of Shu's first king, which might be why King Ji didn't annihilate them, but instead plundered their wealth and their holy women. The holy women were brought to the Xia court and became tools for King Ji to consolidate his rule. By the time of the Shang dynasty, the religion of Shu had deeply permeated every aspect of Central Plains culture, likely posing a threat to the Shang's doctrine of supreme royal authority. That is why two successive Shang kings were willing to destroy the Shu kingdom and their religion at any cost.
But this religion had already been spreading across the Central Plains for nearly 1,000 years. Its myths and legends had already been integrated into the mythology of the land. Fuxi and Nuwa, the battle between the Yan and Yellow emperors, Qi Yu and Quafu, these could all have been myths from the Sanxingdui religion. The strange accounts in the Shan Hai Jing could very well be remnants of this religion left behind during its dissemination. As time went on, people forgot the religion, but its myths and legends were passed down forever. In other words, the Shan Hai Jing may not be a mere collection of myths, but rather an encrypted and mythologized historical and geographical record of a lost civilization. The story doesn't end there. One group of Sanxingdui people fled to Chengdu, where they established a new capital at the Jinsha site. Their worship of the sun and the eye had not vanished. And not long after, they allied with the Xia dynasty to overthrow the very Shang dynasty that had forced them from their homes. History's revenge often unfolds in the most unexpected ways. Another group continued south, passing through Burma and into India. It is possible that the Naga people in northeastern India today are descendants of the Sanxingdui people. They share similar forms of worship, also call themselves descendants of the dragon, pierce their earlobes, and even their bird totems are remarkably similar to artifacts unearthed at Sanxingdui. The archaeology continues, and new discoveries are constantly emerging. Perhaps one day, when more mysteries are unraveled, we will find that the story of Sanxingdui is far grander and more magnificent than anything we can imagine today. And we are all witnesses to this great discovery. Thank you for watching. We'll see you next time.